So you've got this amazing large language model, right? But how do you make it actually smart for your specific needs? Like, how do you get it to understand your company's data or just, keep up with what's happening right now? Well, that's exactly what we're diving into. We're going to break down the two heavy hitters for supercharging your LLM: Retrieval-Augmented Generation, we'll just call it RAG, and fine-tuning. All right, here's what's on deck. First, we'll tackle the big problem with LLMs right out of the box. Then we'll get into our two solutions, RAG and fine-tuning. After that, we'll put them head-to-head, show you how to combine them into a hybrid superpower, and finish up with a quick guide to help you figure out what's right for you. Sound good? Let's go. Okay, so first things first, let's talk about a problem I'm pretty sure we've all run into. You've got this mind-blowingly powerful AI, you ask it something, and the answer it spits out is just, well, it's just wrong. Let me show you a perfect example of what I mean. So I asked a pretty straightforward question. Who won the Euro 2024? Now, for us, that's easy, but for an LLM, it's basically a trick question, and the model just can't answer it. Why? Well, it's pretty simple, actually. Its knowledge is frozen in time. It has this knowledge cutoff date from when it was trained, so as far as it's concerned, that tournament literally never even happened. And this little example, it perfectly captures the two big headaches we're here to solve. Number one, LLMs get out of date fast. And number two, they're generalists. They're like a jack of all trades. They have no idea about the specific lingo, the internal data, or the unique context of your business. So how do we fix this? Well, let's talk about solution number one, RAG. The best way to think about RAG is like giving your LLM an open book test. Seriously, instead of trying to cram more and more facts into its brain, you just give it the textbook right when it's taking the test. That, in a nutshell, is Retrieval-Augmented Generation. What RAG does is it connects your LLM to an external knowledge base, one that's totally up to date. You can think of it like a private library full of your company's PDFs, your internal documents, maybe even a live database. So when you ask a question, the model doesn't just dig into its old static memory. Nope. It does a real-time search through your information to find the right answer. And the way it works is actually pretty cool and honestly pretty simple. You ask your question. A retriever system instantly zips through your knowledge base. It does this super fast search, usually with a vector database, and pulls out the most relevant bits of info. Then it packages that fresh new context together with your original question and hands the whole thing to the LLM. And here's the magic part. The LLM then builds its answer only using the facts it was just given. This is huge because it massively cuts down on the model just making stuff up. Okay, RAG is awesome for giving the LLM fresh facts. But what if you need to change the way the model thinks or talks? That brings us to solution number two, fine-tuning. And if RAG is the open book test, then fine-tuning is like sending your LLM to graduate school. It's not just getting a textbook, it's earning a PhD in a very specific subject. We're talking about fundamentally changing its core expertise. See, fine-tuning goes way deeper. You take an already trained model, and you just keep training it. But this time you use a much smaller, super specific data set that's all about what you need it to know. This process actually goes in and tweaks the model's internal weights. You can think of those as the connections in its brain. It's literally reshaping how it understands the world, turning it from a generalist into a genuine specialist. So think about it like this. Before, you have a generic model. It knows a little bit about everything, right? It can write you an email, a poem, maybe some basic code, but it's not an expert in anything. But then you fine-tune it on thousands of legal documents, and boom, it's completely transformed. Now it's a legal expert. It doesn't just know legal words. It understands the terminology, the citation styles, the exact tone a lawyer would use. And that knowledge isn't something it's looking up on the fly. It's now baked right into its DNA. Okay, so we've got two killer options on the table: RAG, the real-time researcher, and fine-tuning, the deep domain expert. So, which one do you pick? Let's put them head-to-head and find out. All right, looking at this, the choice really boils down to a few key trade-offs. Let's start with data. If your data is changing all the time, think news updates, product docs, inventory. RAG is, without a doubt, your champion. But if you're dealing with knowledge that's pretty static, like teaching it a specific writing style or your company's brand voice, then fine-tuning is the way to go. And then there's this really big one, transparency. With RAG, you can always point back to the source document, which is huge for building trust. Fine-tuning, the knowledge is just part of the model now. It can't really show you its work. But here's where it gets really interesting. What if I told you you don't actually have to choose?
In fact, some of the most powerful AI applications out there are actually combining both to create something of a hybrid superpower.
Here's how it works. First, you create the specialist. You use fine-tuning to build the expert brain. Let's say you train it on finance, so it learns all the lingo, the jargon, the specific way financial analysts talk. So now you have your expert. Next, you give that expert a live feed to the world. That's RAG. You hook it up to the latest market data, breaking news, all the stock prices as they change. And when you put those two things together, you get the ultimate expert. You have an AI that thinks and talks like a seasoned financial analyst, but it also has access to every piece of breaking news in real time. And it can tell you exactly where it got its information. That's the best of both worlds. Let's make this real with an example. Imagine a financial news service. They could fine-tune their model on decades of financial reports, right? So it completely masters the industry jargon. Then they use RAG to pump in all the latest real-time market data. What do they get? They get an AI that creates expert-level market analysis that is totally current, completely trustworthy, and it speaks the language of finance like a native. Okay, so this is all great, but how do you actually apply it to your project? Well, it really just comes down to asking yourself 3 simple questions. Question 1. Is your data dynamic? Does it change constantly? If you're building, say, a chatbot for product documentation that's always being updated, you're going to want RAG. Question 2. Do you need a unique voice or a special vocabulary? If you want to create a legal summarizer that actually sounds like a lawyer, well, you've got to use fine-tuning to bake in that style. And finally, question 3. How important is transparency? Is it absolutely critical for you to be able to cite your sources? Think about things like retail or insurance. If the answer is yes, then RAG is pretty much non-negotiable. So you can see there's no single best answer here. There's no silver bullet. The right choice, whether it's RAG, fine-tuning, or a mix of both, it all comes down to your specific goals, your data, and what you're trying to build. It's all about picking the right tool or tools for the job. So there you have it. That's the playbook. You now know how to give your LLM an open book with RAG, or send it to grad school with fine-tuning, or even create that ultimate hybrid expert. So the only real question left is, what kind of expert are you going to build?